Hello, everybody. It's Monday, July 27th. Tony Bacigalupo here with the New Work Cities Mastermind Group weekly Q&A. We got Justin and Maddie here in Kernville, and we got John tuning in as well. And welcome, everybody. Would love to hear a little bit more about what's going on in your worlds. We'll see what we want to talk about today. Justin, I'll have you go first, and then if Maddie wants to check in, that's cool, and then we'll go to John. So what's going on with you, Justin?
Oh, let's see. I actually took a very nice vacation and went up in the mountains for a week and didn't see another soul for about 4 days. So that was most of what I've been doing since the last time we spoke. California right now is on like each county. They're going kind of county by county in terms of how they're dealing with COVID-19 stuff. As of Friday, Kern County's back on the naughty list, and they are closing offices for non-essential sectors unless you can move your operations outdoors. So we are actually working on building some outdoor space right now. Many of our members, according to the definitions that the state has given of essential sectors, we do have some workers that do work in essential sectors. So that's why I'm here, and that's why we're allowing some of our members to come in, and we're kind of allowing them to kind of self-police in that. But I think as far as office spaces work, I think we're a lot more flexible than most office spaces. Most offices you go into, all the cubicles are right next to each other, and there's not a whole lot you can do to social distance. Here, we're super spread apart and wear masks, except for when we're like looking at our monitors. So we're but we're at the same time, I am kind of looking at if we need to take it a step further and shut down even more. Kern County's not doing great by most metrics, so something we're being careful of. Other than that, I'm basically just trying to get out of vacation mode right now. Kind of looking at getting that outdoor space set up and trying to maybe do a social distance, gathering outside around on co-working day. That's honestly all I really got right now. Not a whole lot of meat to it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'm glad you got a chance to take a vacation. It's so important. And it seems like you were anticipating that there was going to be a shift in terms of the naughty list, as you put it. So, imagine that really helped you to kind of not be blindsided by anything. So, we'll talk about kind of, I imagine what we talk about today is going to relate to some of the things that you're probably thinking about. So we'll get into that as we go. But thanks for that, Justin, and welcome. Cool. Does Maddie want to check in as well? Maddie, if you're with us.
Hi, I'm here. Working from home today, and I'm actually going out on vacation on Wednesday. So Justin's transitioning in, and I'm transitioning out, going on my family's first real long vacation. We're going to be gone for about 2.5 weeks. And so I am just wrapping things up and making sure that I'm good to go. Other than that, just trying to hang in with all the changes on the roller coaster that is COVID-19.
Great. Okay. Well, I hear you, and I'm glad that you're taking a chance to take some time for you. That's so important. Cool. Great. We'll just keep it moving right now. Let's go to John, and then we'll go to Lauren, Penny, and Meredith. John, how are things over on your end? And thank you for sharing those materials with me. I'm looking forward to digging in more with you.
Doing good. Just we have added some outdoor seating to the restaurant that we have above or below our co-working space, and people can work inside, outside, at the restaurant, up at the co-working space. We've had several people utilize our vodcast studio, which is a kind of self-service model for creating videos and podcasts. Some of our members are the consultants that do that work for other companies. So just continuing to push and learn and do more, and trying to figure out how I can take this to the next level. I did send you some information that I would like to try to get your feedback on as I continue to push to get more locations and more members. So other than that, it's another day in paradise.
Sounds good. Fair enough. And curious, maybe we can dig into some questions around like setting up a healthy outdoor workspace and kind of some of the implications around that. Certainly will help if we're able to get a good setup going for that. So yeah, let's come back to that. Thanks, John. All right, and see we've got Lauren here. Lauren, you want to say hello, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you are, and what's up.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm Lauren Meeks. I am the founder and owner of Melanated Queen Productions, a co-working space in Homewood, Illinois. We are a south suburb of Chicago. And so I have been following Tony for quite some time, but I finally decided to make the leap and go ahead and get a support system going. Illinois was one of the hardest hits in the beginning with COVID, and from our understanding, we're doing a great job right now. We're in our phase 4 of 5. Our space did close for 2 months, and we reopened June 1st. And right now, what I'm just trying to manage is not so much, will I be able to survive? I'm more concerned with how my audience is shifting, which is interesting. I'm not sure if anybody else is dealing with this, but not only am I getting the typical entrepreneurs, adults, I'm having people who want their college students or high school students to use our space for remote learning. And that's something that at first I was excited about, and then I quickly became afraid of it. So that's just where I'm at right now. It's okay. How do we manage this, and is this a good idea? But we're trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, and I'd be very interested to learn more about that shift that you're making, some of the challenges around it, some of the opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody is adapting in their own ways. In last week's call, I think everybody on the call was getting involved in some kind of project that was different from their core co-working project, that there's something maybe related or even totally unrelated that they're doing to kind of continue their mission while navigating everything else that's going on. I'm trying fastidiously to avoid using the word uncertainty at all times since we're all so sick of it. But yeah, thank you for that, Lauren. I'm so glad to have you in the group. Looking forward to us chatting more.
Thank you. Likewise.
All right. Let's go to Penny and then Meredith, and then we'll come back around and discuss some of these things. Penny, how are things over with you?
Things are good with me. I'm starting my first Codivation group. So I think it's about time, but I've been kind of thinking about it for a while, and it's kind of evolved on its own. I really do find that this group is really helpful to me. Oftentimes you guys mention something and I'm not at a place where it even makes sense to move forward with it. And things often, based on the information I'm getting from you guys, things often kind of fall into place over time. But so I have a group of people who want to start a private practice, and that's part of what I want to help people with. But essentially, it's less that they really need help starting a private practice and with the to-do list, although I'm coming up with a really good list to help them with that, and even links and stuff like that. But what they really need help with is the motivation, right? And so coming together, and we're going to come together every week for 6 weeks. I wanted to make it time limited, and we're going to work together here or even virtually for 2 hours for 6 weeks. And so I have been looking through some of the resources. It seems like some of the resources really are for just the accountability piece, and that you're not really expecting people to come together and work at the same time. And so this one's a little bit different. We're going to be working at the same time. But I also want to find, I guess I have to look more through your resources, but I want to find a table where people can just easily add in what they're planning to do, maybe via email or whatever way it doesn't get too messy. And how email gets so messy when everybody sends it back and forth. Anyway, so that's what I'm up to, and I'm
Great.
excited about it.
Yeah, let's definitely discuss that more, Penny. I've got some thoughts for you. So I'll make a note and we'll come back to it. Very good. Okay. And Meredith, how are things going for you?
Hey everybody. This morning has been like full sprint from Monday morning, so I'm glad I was able to pop in. Things are going pretty good. I'm preparing. Our governor is about to, for those new faces, I'm in Lexington, Kentucky. Sorry. I manage a co-work space called Base 110. We've had a little bit of rollback because of our increase in numbers for COVID. So we got mandated masks. Our governor has scaled back on the number of people attending gatherings with some few exceptions. So we were up to 50 and now we're back down to 10. And then he's going to have some more announcements today. I think they're going to follow the White House guidelines, and that means reducing restaurant capacity and bars shutting down again. But we've had some spikes. I think we're at like a close to a 5% positivity rate. So not terrible, but not great, you know. So I've been focusing on, we've had a couple new members join in our private office space, which has been nice, but trying to figure out new people coming in and out and all of that kind of good stuff. And also just how to pivot with a lot of this stuff. Tony, you spoke on that, with a lot of us kind of trying to think through how do we shift a little bit of our focus on how do we still stay sustainable during this time. So I'm doing some of that as well. Our particular county announced last week that the fall semester for school will be 100% virtual. So we're trying to think through how we handle that and if there's ways that we can help support our community with, you know, our entrepreneurs and whatnot that have children at home, and how they're going to manage the rest of the year, basically.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious if you want to just tell us a bit more about the pivot that you have in mind. Like, where do you see the adaptation going for you and for your community?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, we had slated to open up a new co-work space May 1, and that did not happen, obviously. So we've been sitting on like 4,000 square feet of really nice open space that we've not been able to do anything with. So one of those things is we've been able to push our rent on that a bit, but we're kind of getting to the point where we need to start doing something with the space. So we've been exploring ways to do like some form of socially distanced gatherings. So small groups, we're looking particularly with like either large corporate teams that are now remote, or like leadership teams for other businesses, when there's just some things that you have to do in person. So since we have so much space and we're able to really spread people apart, can we take advantage of that and to be able to provide a space for those types of gatherings? So that's part of it. And I'm really digging into this education aspect. So one of the things that we're kind of looking into is we have an event space in this main location as well, which is like a 2,000 square foot event space. So it's pretty open as well. Can we figure out a way to offer some kind of education benefit to our members? So whatever, and I'm in like super early stages of figuring this out because we just had the announcement, but can we do like education pods? So an add-on perk for our members, they come in, use a private office, so they have a space to work. Their child can then come into this education space. We're hoping to be able to partner with the University of Kentucky College of Education, or hire maybe substitute teachers that are currently out of work, figuring out ways to still be very integrated into the community, but provide some support for entrepreneurs and business owners in our space, because it's going to be really hard to homeschool your kids and have your full-time job, especially if you're a single parent or both of you work. So we're brainstorming to figure out how can we adapt to be able to kind of just have a new benefit and use our space. We have the technology, you know, a lot of families don't have access to internet. So virtual learning is really hard if you don't have steady internet. So we have a lot of the infrastructure and space to be able to do this. It's just figuring out how can we do it safely, and in a way that's manageable for me, pretty much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, okay, and I think that, you know, we're obviously contending with really big challenges, but there's also common needs, and in those common needs there are opportunities. And ultimately, you're in the business of creating connection between people who are there to support each other through potentially difficult journeys. And under normal circumstances, that's just entrepreneurship, which unto itself is challenging, or remote work, which has its own challenges, even in non-COVID times, just being able to focus and have structure and, regular kind of routine and things like that. But the core message there is the same, which is you're not alone. There's other people who are dealing with this too. And even if all we're trying to do is just keep our heads above water to buy us time, let's try to help each other do the best that we can. Not every parent is struggling equally. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with people's inherent privileges or just different lifestyles that they have or whatever. But if somebody in your group has some way of doing things easier than everybody else and they're willing to share it, then that value can be shared amongst the group. And this is kind of the basic conceit of a co-working community: is everybody in the room has a piece and nobody in the room has the whole puzzle. And so I might be the greatest, web designer in the world, but I've never had a good picture taken of me, and my public image sucks, that I don't have a good resume online or something. And there could be a photographer who is terrific at getting my picture and her website sucks. And if we can help each other, then we're both going to thrive as a result of it. And if you're the person who introduced us to each other, we're going to be grateful to you for forever. And we're going to be excited because when we both need a CPA because we don't know how the hell to do our taxes, the person in your space who can get it done, right? And so all of that still applies now, where everybody's still got to figure out how to do all that business stuff. But now we have these additional layers of need. And so what we're looking for are ways to create opportunities for those things to happen in a way that is friendly to the real constraints that we have right now when it comes to people's availability. And so part of what I'm doing now is I'm working on designing resources specifically to help people learn how can you build community without, either safely in person, very, in kind of very kind of minimal, lightweight ways, but without too much reliance on synchronous video, and accounting for the fact that people probably don't have a lot of time to spare because they have to deal with kids, because work is going crazy or whatever it is. And so I'm thinking that maybe we benefit in this conversation from just diving in here to more about, how do we safely gather in person? What does outdoor co-working look like? That kind of stuff. But then what are some efficient, kind of time efficient and video efficient ways of gathering online that we haven't maybe played with as much yet? And then maybe we can make some headway there. And then we can also talk about Penny and how you're kind of tracking things with your Codivation group. And that should make for a pretty good topic. And I think what I just mentioned should also address what you mentioned, Lauren, but we'll make sure we layer that in as we go. So great, let's dive into that. Let's start just Penny with your Codivation group. And just as kind of a refresher to the folks who don't know, Codivation is basically a goal setting and accountability group that I created specifically for co-working spaces. I made it for my own co-working space, and it massively revitalized the culture and improved the retention in my space. So much so that our business was just booming for years afterward. Not just because of it, but it really led the renaissance. And some of those people still work together today as a result of it. So Penny, I'm so glad you started that group. And you mentioned kind of the tracking and how you keep track of what everybody's working on and all of that. So I'll just tell you real quick, kind of, and you mentioned a little bit about how you're merging the goal setting and the work, the shared work. So I'll address that a little bit.
Yes, so it's a work sprint combined.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. So first and foremost, I think it's really valuable if people can see what other people have committed to. And there's some sense of visual kind of accountability there. And there's a lot of ways to approach it. You could do it with a very simple Google Doc, and I'll share some templates that I've used in the past for this. But the other thing is you can, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't overthink it. You can do it in a Google Doc, and it's just name and what they've, their long-term and their weekly commitments, and everybody just finds their name and jumps to it.
Would you say that these days almost everybody can access a Google Doc, or like, I mean, there's lots of people my age and older, like, I don't know if that's going to be a problem or not. Like these days is pretty much everybody on Google and they can access a Google Doc.
Yeah, I would say that Google Docs is probably the closest that you're going to come to universally accessible. It's, nothing's going to be 100%, but it's going to be, starting point. So I'm going to share with you, let's see if I can make this shareable. This was something for a cohort oriented program for this group that I started and didn't finish. Well, I did it for a round and then we decided it was too much work. It wasn't worth it. But what I would do is I wouldn't use this exact format, but I would make it like each person has their main goal and then their interim weekly goals that they fill in the status of. So everybody, it's basically like 6 lines, and it's just initial goal and then week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, whatever. And they don't have to have the weekly goals filled out. They just have to have the next weekly goal set so that they can update on it each meeting. And then you could easily do this in a spreadsheet as well. It's really just a matter of your own comfort level. Wow, it's so cool to see everybody jump right into that. That's great. And I will show you also, this isn't mine, but I will show you what it looks like. So I was for a while working in this group called Cave Squad, which is run by these folks at caveday.org, which does virtual work sprints and in-person work sprints when COVID's not happening. But they basically created a virtual like goal setting and accountability program on top of their work sprint program. And it's a little bit detailed, but I'm going to try to show this off for you on screen share. And the way that their system worked, which I don't recommend you go this far at all, but just to give you a taste of it, each person in the group would have a template like this, and they would have like a breakout of their different categories of work. And I could put in a task, and then I could mark whether it's hard, I could show the percentage done, and then if I check the box, it crosses out the whole thing. So it's just a really easy visual thing, and I could see other people's boards as well. So again, I wouldn't recommend something nearly this complicated, but you could very easily create a little dashboard where everybody has their regular updates on here as well. This is a really old one, so everything's broken now, but it actually calculated the number of tasks everybody had done, and they played like little mini competitions to see who could get the most tasks done in a week, or in the course of the program. So yeah, and so what was funny was that with my Codivation group, we had kind of the meeting itself, which was the check-in and the update, and then there was naturally this energy that came from it of, well, we know what we're going to do now, but I'm kind of afraid that I won't do it if I'm left to my own devices. So why don't why don't the 3 of us get together at this table tomorrow morning and, at 10, and we'll all do a work sprint together. And it was a great little like private group work sprint. So that was really where regular work sprints in my co-working space were born from. And I think it's a great win. I'll just add that when things start getting tough for people to make time, what you want to maybe consider is making it so that people try to check in with an update, even if they can't make the whole work sprint meeting. Because what ends up happening with these accountability groups, which I love and I highly recommend, is that people drop off. You start with 15. By the end of it, you might have 12. You might have 7. It might have really dropped off. And a big part of what causes that drop off is people get busy. But the other thing is that people start to want to avoid going to the meetings because they didn't do what they said they were going to do. And so we want to try to, number one, lower the barrier as much as possible to keeping the pulse alive. And this is important for every community builder, for whatever program you're doing that's similar to this, is just make it possible for people to just give you a pulse. I don't need, if you can't make the meeting, send me a text message and just tell me how it's going, and I'll read it to the group. Just give me a little update. What did you do? What are you going to do next? What's blocking you that we could help you with? Three prompts. That's the basic stand-up format, right? And then that way you're lowering the barrier. The other thing I want to emphasize, Penny, and I think this is valuable to everybody too. I was thinking about this on the run this morning, on my run, is people get self-conscious about failure, but we shouldn't, because basically what we're doing with a goal-setting program is we are trying to either achieve the thing we know we want to do or learn why we're not achieving the thing we thought we wanted to do. And both are extremely valuable. And chances are a good number of the people in an accountability group don't actually want to do or aren't in a position to do the thing they think they want to do. And that's really, really useful and valuable if they don't let themselves feel shame over the fact that they're not doing it. And so what I try to emphasize in more recent versions of this that I've done is basically we're sharing either your success or your learning. You're either succeeding or you're learning. And so there isn't like, I failed, I didn't do what I said I was going to do, I'm feeling shame. It's more like, oh, I didn't do what I said I was going to do. And I've examined why. And it turns out I'm just too damn busy for this. Or I don't actually want to do this. My ego says I want to do it because it seems like it would, make money or it would make somebody proud or whatever, but I don't know that I actually want to do it, right? And like, amazing, really great. What did you do during this time? Like what else would you like to do? Throw out the old goal, let's make a new one, And so really destigmatizing failure in an accountability group, I think, is hugely important. And that's going to help you capture, not everybody, people are still going to drop off, but if you start with 15, it might help you stay at 12 by the end instead of 7, and those people in the middle are really going to be very grateful for it. Maybe get the most value out of the program. So bunch of thoughts on that. Any questions on that topic, or does any of this land for you, Penny?
It does. I like that you said either you achieve the thing or you learn why you're not achieving the thing. Yes, destigmatizing failure. And there's 2 women who want to do this, and they have like 2 full-time jobs. And the one woman has 8 dogs, and her mother's like in a nursing home. And these women want to do it, and you can almost see the writing on the wall, like that when their life is that jam-packed. Although, they still may be able to do it. I don't want to be a downer, and I'm not really a negative person, but their lives are so full. Of course, they haven't gotten around to this in the last year because their lives are so full, but then that could be something that they learn about themselves, or maybe they'll actually rearrange their lives in order to do it. But yeah, that's part of the learning that's going to have to happen, I think. Yeah.
And so you can tell right away, setting reasonable expectations, super important, especially for a first group, a first engagement. It's very easy to start off saying you've got, I've done this how many times? I start a new group. I want to, work out every morning. I want to do a weekly blog post. I want to, all this stuff. And then what happens a week later, I had done, maybe a very little bit of it. And then I probably don't show up to the meeting because I feel shame. And so setting that right away as a facilitator, you can say, look, even if you have these lofty goals, let's break them down into something really, really, really small that's really achievable. And the other thing you can do also is in your facilitation, and again, this applies to other programs too, is to ask people, what does the rest of your week look like? What is it like? Look at your calendar, everybody pull out your calendar and just tell me, like, what's your week look like? And if somebody looks at their calendar and say, oh my God, well, actually I have meetings all week. And then on the weekend, we're going to visit my, my husband's family and whatever, you could say, okay, cool. So it sounds like you got a busy week. Now that you understand a realistic view of what your availability actually is, now let's talk about what your goals are. And P.S., sometimes the goal, it's perfectly valid to say that the goal is, I just got to make it to next week. we're meeting on Monday. By next Monday, I don't expect to achieve anything aside from just doing what I have to have done to make it through this next week. And that's also important if you're dealing with, family health crisis, or mourning a loss or dealing with your own health issues. I've had so many times we have this like crazy, like traditional business stuff built into our heads that, somebody is ashamed they didn't do their goal. And I'm like, okay, well, weren't you like dealing with like a death in the family this week and you had to fly to California for it? And they're like, well, yeah, but like, and I'm like, no. Like, you get a pass. Like you absolutely, like you do not shame yourself. Like this is just let that go right now. You did what you had to do this week. You absolutely did what was most important. So like we're anticipating some of those things. And I think that's useful in all community organizing settings right now is, finding that balance of saying like, hey, let's give ourselves permission to be humans during a very difficult time. And also let's have each other's backs and try to continue to advance when we're able to. We can't use the pandemic as an excuse to sit around and do nothing either. So there's still a lot of opportunity for us to help each other.
Well, so one quick question, and that is, since you've done a bunch of these, some of the people really will be wanting to ask each other questions. And so I know with the work sprint, oftentimes you work and then you take a break and then you work some more. But some of the people, it really would be nice if they ask each other questions because they're working on the same kinds of things. Does that normally bother the whole group or?
Yeah, what I would normally do is there's two things. One is during a work sprint, you have blocks of time. So if it turns out that two people have a conversation that would be valuable, then block out a time for it and then go off and do it. And, ideally, I would say go peel away and do it away from the rest of the group if you can.
And we can make these rooms in Zoom now. I forgot about that. Okay.
Yeah, although it's tricky because it's a very tricky thing with Zoom. But yeah, you should be able to do it. Or worst case, they can just pop off of your Zoom and, jump into their own conversation.
Okay.
One of the things I'm finding actually is super, super great now is staying in the Zoom meeting, just muting everything. And then two people in the thing just pick up a phone and just talk to each other in their own conversation separate. So you don't exit this space. I can maybe have the audio on and hear when the plenary session is back or whatever. But basically, people can like DM each other their phone number in the chat, and then they just get on the phone and they'll just chat on their own time or, whatever other form of medium they want to do.
That's helpful.
But I do want to talk about this today as well as non-synchronous video forms of community building because I think it's a hugely untapped thing. But off to a good start.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Penny. Please let me know how it goes. When does the first meeting?
Saturday from 9 to 11.
Cool. Wow, weekend meeting. I love it.
Hey, Penny,
Yeah, a lot
can
of
I
people
ask
have full-time jobs, so yeah.
Uh-huh.
Penny, did you how did you get people, and Tony, maybe this is part of the program, but how did you get people to commit to participating in this program? Was it like you surveyed your members and asked if they were interested or?
Well, there are 4 of my members who are at the beginning point of starting a private practice. And so I emailed them individually and said, hey, are you guys interested in, maybe doing a program together? And I wasn't really thinking about a Codivation group. I was thinking about just supporting them, whatever. I didn't really think about the Codivation group. And so they all said, yeah, we want to work. And we made a quick little 30-minute meeting to talk about what they really needed. And I started to realize they really needed just the motivation part of the whole darn thing, right? Because otherwise they kind of know what they're doing. And then I sent that out to my other members. There are 26 members. I sent it out to everyone and said, hey, it really is a motivation group and you can join us if you want. And now 3 more people have said yes. So that's how I did it.
Okay. No, awesome. I was just curious because I had attempted to do one at the beginning of everything going virtual and I had no participation. So I was curious, having like a core group that was already invested, it sounds like a really great starting point. And then being able to open it up to others sounds great. Thanks.
And plus it's the first one I've done. So every time I do something the first time, I just consider it practice for the next time because next time, no doubt I'll do things differently.
One thing when we started or every time we've done a Codivation round, if I just send something out to our members, it's often hard to kind of explain in email or Slack or anything else what it's all about, and I don't get a lot of response from that. But if I call people and if I text our members like individually and say, hey, we're doing this thing, I know you've got this project, because we keep engaged with our members and what they're doing and where they're at, and like, hey, I know you got this project you've been wanting to do for a while. I know there's this thing you want to do, like we're doing this motivation, collaboration, accountability thing. Do you want to be part of it? And that's how we've gotten people in hooked for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But then I did find, and we did do one kind of in the midst of the shutdown, and I think it does lend itself pretty well to being online. But I think it's something that Tony touched on earlier too. When we tried to do another one during the shutdown, I think people's time and their focus and their energy are all used up, or at least our members were. And so it was even the ones that really benefited from previous Codivation groups. It was hard. We actually ended up getting zero participation directly after one of our most successful Codivation groups. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic right now.
Yeah, there's some adapting to be done for sure, and so absolutely. So I think it's very important to emphasize what Justin mentioned, which is this is an amazing opportunity, Penny, potentially to do a little bit of recruiting of your existing membership, but then even prospective members. So I started Codivation as a marketing tool to get people to sign up for my co-working space when other bigger, better funded co-working spaces were poaching my members. And so I knew I had to compete on something other than Workspace. And it turned out that giving people a specific program that they had to join by a specific date to be a part of got people out of the woodwork who otherwise would have put off coming in to visit the space. And so it might not be a bad time, certainly to reach out, I'm sure you've done this already, but specifically reaching out to your current members, maybe even individually, using your judgment who you reach out to, say, hey, we're doing this program. If you think it would be useful, I'd love for you to join for the first meeting, see if it works for you, whatever. But then even to go back into your tour logs from people who have reached out before, people who have expressed interest before, even if it's from 2 years ago, who cares? If there's somebody who you think would be interested in this, just tell them, hey, I'm doing this program. If you're trying to, get some goals set that would help. I don't know if that's applicable to what you're doing, Penny, but yeah. Come for the first.
But then the question of charging comes, like, when do you charge people, and they have to be members in order to be part of it, or
sit in on the kickoff meeting and get a taste of what it's like. And if you want to add your name to the spreadsheet and come back to the next week's meeting, then we'd love to have you as a basic level member. And this is where the accessible under $100 a month membership really helps, because if you're able to sell that to somebody who doesn't need Workspace, then it's an easier conversation when that happens. Yeah, great.
Tony, quick question. So you're recommending that the first one can be free, when you're doing the first one?
Yeah, for a Codivation group. Yeah, like what Penny was describing. Yeah, it's one way of doing it. You could also break it out into having an interest meeting that's separate from the program.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe the way I did it was I let everybody come to the first meeting, and you could all set goals. I want to be generous. I want to provide a lot of value. If you want to come and set your goals for the month and then you leave, so be it. But if you're in a room full of people who you're excited to continue to be a part of as a community, and you want to meet these people every week and work with them on an ongoing basis, then give me $30 a month or 50 or 80 or whatever your number is. It's not that expensive. It's a heck of a bargain, and it gets you in the door. Yeah.
Okay, so Tony, that price being for the program rather than a membership plan within the, or is that where you bring in that membership, like, hey, you know, is this price, and you have the same people that you can work on the program with?
So this is the beauty, Rachel, is that it's one and the same. Membership in my community is about me providing you support between members. And so what I'm very deliberately getting people away from is membership equals renting space.
Hmm.
I get away from it because God knows what's coming next with everything in the world. If we
Right.
say, you are joining my organization, which is a
Yeah.
membership organization. It's a paid membership organization, which is a support network for entrepreneurs and remote workers in my area. And so we are here to help each other grow. We're here to help each other navigate challenges. We're here to foster belonging. We're here to help each other have fun and celebrate. And we're going to do that online and offline, depending on what people are willing and able to do.
Right.
And so
Okay.
being a member of my organization means you have access to my online community
Everything.
and my programs and all these things. And the
Gotcha.
beauty is, if you really get good at this, then you
Mhm.
can actually have a lot of people joining at the non-space renting level, which provides a pipeline to people who will pay for space. But
Yep.
even then, you could build actually a very profitable and robust remote community of
Right.
many more people than you could ever fit in your physical space if you really
True.
good at it.
Yeah.
And you could use it as a pathway to other stuff if you want to do coaching or something like that, other revenue streams. Yeah, that's the basic gist of it.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Very
So
good.
I want to go back to Lauren and see if we can talk about some of the other ways of kind of approaching fostering connection with the constraints we have. And Lauren, I was just hoping if you could maybe just give us another like minute or two breakdown of the challenge that you're trying to unpack with the educational programming and how you're handling things in the space, and then we'll see if we can kind of adapt the conversation from there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it started with me really thinking about our local college students because, I still work in education myself. I still work 9 to 5. And I understand that a lot of our students are either doing a hybrid model this fall or they're completely remote. And so I became kind of concerned about them. So I offered a discount for college students. And once I made that announcement, parents of high school students began to contact me. And that to me is the part that I'm a little uneasy about, because a college student is typically 18 or older. I can hold them accountable. They can complete their own membership agreement and pay their own fee, and they get a discount. But it's close to the same model that we're using for our entrepreneurs. Anyone else who's using the space. High school is different, and so I did have one parent. Family signed their child up, but the great thing about this is that the parent also signed up as a member. So I felt comfortable with that yesterday. We had an open house. Then word is getting around, I'm getting calls about high school students. I'm trying to figure out how to manage that. The reason why I'm concerned about it is because my space is not staffed. It's a self-sufficient space. We have a code to our doors. I have 2 units. We have a keypad, and the members have a code and they come in. They communicate what they need, if they need to reserve a room or so, and they kind of just do their thing because they are adults. And that may kind of change that. That may be a game changer for me if I have people under the age of 18. And just trying to figure out, how do I prevent us from becoming a service that I'm not qualified to provide, and so that's just really what I'm thinking. I love the idea of being able to provide a service to the community in that manner, but am I really equipped for that? Is that something I really want to do, especially when my idea was college?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that, Lauren. Can you tell me a little bit more about how this fits into your overall professional needs and ambitions right now? Do you need to go after this market? Is it important to your business? Vis-a-vis other things you could be doing?
I think the college students, I like the idea of supporting them, because I think that they can directly benefit from having the the community engagement with other people. You know, as we were talking about earlier, I mean, we have a person in our space who's a media expert who can kind of maybe provide internship opportunities. I mean, we have people who can kind of help, just kind of teach them and mentor them. They'd be willing to do that. Is that there's not a need for high school students. Do we have a space for them? Yes. Do we have a lot of space for them? No. And I think that if nothing else, I need to put just a cap on it, just to say we're doing 5. We're doing 5 this fall, waiting list for the spring or something like that. But I can't say that there's a direct need. I think that when I think of college students and studying and have a quiet place, I think that we have a space for them and we welcome them. I'm more concerned with high school students coming in and we'll see where it goes. But if nothing else, I think I can just control it with the numbers.
Yeah, well, you know, that sounds very wise, Lauren. It reminds me that a lot of how you handle potentially tricky situations comes down to how you curate the, you know, who's in the room and how that communication pipeline works. So, you know, I know over the years I had a lot of exposure to potential security risks around access to my space, but I was able to avoid major incidents simply by making sure I had really good people in the room who looked after each other and made sure things stayed in good shape. And so if you start with a very controlled, small group of people and there's some vetting in terms of their behavior and their background, then you know you're going to be in much better shape than if it's a little bit more of a free-for-all, right?
Yeah.
But the other random thoughts I have, and I'm hoping one of them resonates with you, is one is seeing who else within your community network is in a position where maybe they've dealt with a similar situation around working with under 18 and what the legal implications or policy implications are that you just need to be aware of, who might be able to offer you some guidance. And then 2 is whether there's somebody who might be in a position to help out in that regard, who maybe has more direct experience and interest in guiding it, because you're in the position of leadership where you need to be able to focus on growing the business and handling every other aspect of it. And so there's an aspect of your organization that isn't your core competency and really isn't like a major part of your strategic priority, then it shouldn't be something that takes you too much away from, you know, the other things you're doing. So is there somebody else that can take on that responsibility who would be excited to serve that role where it's easy for them because they know how to do it? And then the final thought that I have, I'm just throwing these at you and you could tell me if you want to talk about more, is just recognizing that as co-working space owners, you get stuff thrown at you all the time. And it's stuff that you really want to do because it's a good thing. But we also have to recognize that sometimes we have to say no just because we're extremely resource constrained. And, you know, the opportunity cost of every hour of a small business owner's life is way higher relative to the organization's growth than it is for a much larger organization, you know, and so you just unfortunately have to be extremely selective about where you direct your attention and energy. So, you know, even if it's a really good idea that needs to happen, but you're concerned that it could be a distraction from your core offering, you know, sometimes there's value in, you know, just asking, you know, am I really in a position to serve this? Or can I say, you know, going back to those other things, hey, if I can find someone who feels really confident that they can lead this and we're on solid legal ground and whatever, great. But otherwise I can't take this on, you know. Maybe ultimately what you're doing, Lauren, is fine, which is say, I'm going to limit the number. I'm going to make sure it's 5 kids who are awesome. And then I can trust them and I'll stay on top of it. If there's any issues, we'll deal with it. And maybe that's fine. I'm just thinking these other things might help if, you know, if it's a bigger issue down the line.
And truth be told, what you just mentioned is helpful, not only just to the student population, because what's interesting, 2 things. I actually work for a high school. So when I'm not running my co-working space, which is like around the clock, I do work for a high school. And so I do mentoring for that. So it's interesting because I'm very familiar with this population. But the other thing is that what you said is helpful is because learning to say no has been a theme this whole weekend, not just to students. I mean, I had some problems with a new member I brought in who's he's a media person. He's a filmmaker, and I don't think I can serve him. I don't think I can serve him. I think I saw some things that took place, some violations that took place very early on, and I need to learn how to say no. I don't have the space for that work. My space attracts people because they see production, so they're like, "Oh, she does what I do," but really, there's a story behind the name of my business. So, that's learning to say no is very helpful because I'm at a place now where I have to say that, and I have to be okay with that and say we cannot provide what you need. However, I have a friend who has a venue down a hall, and you can go with her.
Exactly.
Turn down the monthly fee is not worth it.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And I think if you can find the yeses that are hidden behind the no, then you can feel good about continuing to kind of support someone's journey. So if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I want your help with a bunch of stuff and it's going to take a lot of time," and I say, "Great, can you pay me?" And they say no, I say, "Okay, well, here's what I can do. Here's some free resources. Here's a forum you can join. Like, here's some advice I put on a blog post. Like, here's all my yeses, and like, you want to come back and talk to me? I'm like happy to support you in any way that is compatible with me." And you can say, "Yes, I love this idea. I'm going to go see if there's a resource in my community to support it. And if I find somebody who wants to help you and our space can accommodate, awesome, great. I can't run it myself, but I can use my position of leadership to advance this conversation. And if we don't have the resources available now, we have the awareness out there, and then we can come back and revisit this conversation down the line, next season or next semester or whatever it is."
But I also want to say one of the things about kind of learning to say no, and many of us have this journey. Of course, as a therapist, I think about this a lot. But when we learn to say no, we also don't have to solve the problem for them. So you can actually say, "No, it's not going to work for us." And you don't even have to recommend the place down the hall. You don't have to solve the problem for them. You're allowed to just say no.
Gotcha. I appreciate that.
Appreciate that, Penny. I think I needed to hear that. Oh, man. Well, anything else on that, Lauren? Do you feel complete, or is there anything you wanted to dive deeper on?
No, I'm good. I'm just happy to be here. Some of my anxiety is already decreasing, so that's a beautiful thing.
Yay!
Welcome to Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Made my day, Lauren. All right, so I just wanted to talk for a few minutes before we get to the end about two things. One is just we'll probably have a longer conversation about it, but and we've talked about it maybe before, but we've got some newcomers. Treating the issue of all this unpredictability around how we can gather and how people want to gather and how they're available to gather as a design problem. And I'm noticing that we're just on this. I actually drew a little zine about this. If y'all want to follow my Instagram, I'm going to post this later, but is it backwards for you, or is it? No? Okay. And it just talks about like, I've been thinking a lot about how people have gone through these ups and downs of, we have to close down. Let's put everything on Zoom. Everybody burned out on Zoom. Let's try to reopen. Wait, we're not ready to reopen. Now what do we do? And so it's just been a very tumultuous time. And I think the solution is in looking at, what do I want to achieve? What's my purpose generally in a very high level? And then what are my constraints, which might be, in my mind, my assumption right now is we can't meet in person, or it's very minimal meeting in person. We can't over rely on synchronous video because people burn out on it. And people are busy right now. They don't have a lot of time. And so I think what happens, honestly, is a lot of people just give up. And they say, well, if that's what's going on, then I just can't build community, or I'm going to build community for whoever will show up, and that's it. But I would venture to say, if we take those constraints and say, we can't do too much in person, can't do too much video, and can't have it take up too much time, but we still want to achieve this mission of having people help each other with their businesses or whatever, right? Now let's look at what we have available to us. And the tools that are underrated in my mind around this are phone calls, which are way easier to do than video. Asynchronous connection. So can we record video or audio or just written word and parry back and forth from there. And in particular, text messaging, which we've talked about before, where, for example, with Penny's group, if somebody else here is doing a similar group for their co-working community, you could have one meeting, one really important meeting over Zoom or in person or whatever. And that's when you like really kind of ask people to invest their time and energy in a synchronous conversation. And then everyone sets up their game plan for the next 6 weeks or whatever the time frame is. After that, everybody can pair off into one-on-one groups or a small group and get a text message thread or a WhatsApp thread going where, or Slack or whatever. And then once per X, they check in with each other. And it could be you as the facilitator just ping everybody once a week with, hey, check in with a text message. What have you been up to? What do you need help with? What's next, right? But you could even have accountability buddies checking in with each other once a day over text. And again, you could have kids in your arms juggling work and still be able to respond to a quick text message and keep that lifeline alive. And then the other thing is written word, physical mail and physical packages, which I think is grossly underrated. And I'm very interested to play with how we can instigate some connection between people in an asynchronous written sent by the mail fashion. Could we pair people up and have them become pen pals? Could we give them prompts that they can fill out like Mad Lib style and send to each other? I think there's just a lot of like really interesting magic we can cultivate that would just get people to flip out. And the thing is, like, very few people are trying this stuff. So this is a woman that I follow on Instagram that I stumbled upon. Her name is Gina McMullen, and she has this thing called she has like a series of zines, little mini zines that she's making, which I'm totally imitating and I'm a big fan of. But she sent, when I bought some of her zines off of Etsy, she sent this, which I didn't buy, but it was part of just in the package unexpectedly. And it's a fillable little thing. So it's like a little card you can send somebody to show your appreciation, right? And it's just a few pages, and it's a very simple, easy thing. But I could stick this in a tiny envelope with maybe a blank copy that you could forward on to your friends, right? And send it to somebody for the cost of a postage stamp. And I feel like this could like absolutely make somebody's day, And so I feel like there's opportunities like this where we can cultivate more stuff, even with just like, you don't need to do a synchronous meeting of any kind to do this. And somebody could sit down after the kids have gone to sleep at 10 o'clock at night and write a little letter to somebody and stick it in the mailbox with their favorite sticker that's sitting around their house and, make somebody feel really special. So want to explore more of those things, maybe in a new workshop that I want to develop. Would love to hear your questions or thoughts in that regard. But that's something that I'm playing with for the not too distant future. And I also want to mention Co-working Day. So if you guys don't know, Co-working, the global movement, is celebrating the 50th anniversary of the co-working movement. And we're asking people to submit video clips for a big
Tony,
yeah.
what's the context of that? Because I kid you not, it's like my excitement is deflated with the co-working day. I'm not trying to pour, make the mood low, but
yeah.
Like, what's the context of the video? Because I'm not saying everyone is going through, difficulties, but yeah, I don't know.
So I appreciate you speaking up about it, Rachel. And I will say that the thought process behind it for the people who put this together is specifically to give people hope for what co-working is really about and why it's about something more important than just office space. And to start giving people a better understanding of how they can be hopeful, even as they deal with very difficult challenges with their physical space. Because the co-working communities that we are building are going to outlive the physical spaces that they are in. And if you continue investing in that direction, that's going to give you the foundation for great prosperity, potentially during and certainly after this crisis. And so the idea is not to pretend that everything's wonderful. Things are actually very difficult right now, but we are in a place right now where if we understand what the reality of what makes co-working special is, we can start to invest in building communities that are going to last regardless of what happens to the physical spaces. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, is the audience us or putting people out there? Is it us to encourage each other, or is it so? Because I'm trying to, I'm trying to find out if, for example, do we make like for us, now people are finally starting to come out of the woodworks, but in cases where maybe do we show where, for example, the video where you actually have some people in your space and other times where there's no one.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find out like what exactly the expectation and who the audience is exactly.
It's right now, this part is between co-working space managers and owners.
Okay, gotcha.
But there will be another project where we'll actually be asking members of co-working spaces to share why it's special to them and why they care about their co-working community. And so that's going to be another piece that comes later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Cool. All right. So I pasted a link in the chat about that. You'll be hearing more about it in the discussion. But anybody who has a few minutes to record a quick clip on that would be a big help. And that's about it. Please keep me posted on anything you want to share. Would love to see you all again next Monday if you can join. Thank you to all of you for coming. Thanks to Lauren as well, our newcomer, and John, our not even our newest newcomer now, our veteran now. And I'll see you all in a week.
Thank you, Tony.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
You too.
Hi, Tony. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, Maddie.